Welcome to the Ask Why podcast, a series of conversations exploring the future of learning and the future of work with experts ranging from professional educators to investors, company builders, and individual learners. The way we learn and the way we work is changing rapidly. Artificial intelligence is automating ever more tasks around us, putting pressure on all of us to reskill and upskill at accelerated rates, while dealing with a level of unprecedented information overload. The education system, built for an age of information scarcity and around a broadcast model of teachers and learners, is simply no longer fit for purpose. But what can be put in its place? If this is a topic you're interested in, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast by searching for #AskWhy in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on YouTube or TikTok and catch the video feed of these conversations, which are happening in VR. Today's guest is Christian Rebernik. Christian and I met through our common connections at Emerge Education, who are an investor in the company he's building today, Tomorrow Education. He's a serial entrepreneur who started his first company over 26 years ago with a background in software engineering. He was the CTO and managing director of N26, is a mentor at the Founder Institute, and serves as an advisor to various startups.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to be here. Quite excited to be here as well. To be honest, as mentioned, it's my first time doing a podcast actually in virtual reality space. So really quickly about myself, I'm from Austria, so I like the environment in this room. I can see more mountains than now because I'm actually physically based in Berlin.
Yes.
I started initially at one point of time actually economics, but I dropped out because for me studying was quite boring. It was not relevant. I couldn't match it how this is practically relevant. And then I dropped out and started a tech company. And that's where I literally fell in love with using technology to create meaningful products. And that's what I have done in the last 20, now actually more years, in very different roles and very different settings. I had the opportunity to help to build a bank with N26. I had the opportunity to create a digital health record in Germany with 37 health insurance companies together for 20 million people. But I also, for example, worked for the United Nations World Food Program, helping to build Share the Meal, which was really exciting. And today I'm into education, which I believe is one of the biggest and most important fields actually to create a better tomorrow.
Yeah, so the theme of tomorrow, as I prepared a little bit for this, seems to be a thing as well. You were with the Tomorrow Bank before that as well. I never even knew that
actually. So I'm also since a couple of years. I always think about how can I help others as well, and how can I improve and help the society to become even more sustainable. And one of the parts of that is that I'm also mentoring and advising, and I'm also investing into startups. And in that role, in this capacity of actually investing and advising, I'm supporting Tomorrow, which is a bank based in Hamburg, which is a sustainable bank, which tries to change the world for the better with a finance perspective.
Okay. And who got the name first? Tomorrow Bank, Tomorrow University?
It was definitely them, yeah. We had actually discussion about it. And it's actually a funny story because I thought, so when we founded Tomorrow University, a little bit more than 2 years ago, we had a very different initial draft name about that. And then we thought about, okay, what should we call it? What we want to do here? We want to create a university to have an impact and we presented also into the name and everything. And we brainstormed together with the full team and we nailed them down. It was like, we had really a lot of fun names in there, but we nailed it down. And then the vote from the team was Tomorrow. And then I thought, oh my God, shit, I'm actually invested in Tomorrow now. How do I explain them that I want to create Tomorrow University out of that? And then I talked to them and said, hey, listen, you have a great name. Our team came up with something very similar, which is called Tomorrow Name. We want to do that. Is this okay for you? And they literally they said, yeah. I mean, they have not been super excited about it because it's their brand and they're really established, especially in Germany, in that regard. But they also said you cannot copyright, you cannot protect Tomorrow as a name anyway. So it's fine, and that's the reason why at the end we really went with Tomorrow University.
Yeah, that must have been an interesting conversation. I always start these conversations with one question that is, what is something that you believe to be true that most people in your industry would disagree with?
How I started tomorrow is actually by thinking about two things. On the one hand side, what are the things which will change in the next 10 years. Yeah. And so, giving you an example, I believe fully that electric cars will come and will be the dominant way of mobility when it comes to cars. But I thought about this in pretty much all the different industries. And then I thought also, on the other hand side, what will not change in the next 10 years. Yeah. There are a lot of things. For example, you still want to travel. It's an assumption. Yeah. With remote, you see here, maybe it's a wrong assumption. Yeah. So, but I thought about these things quite a lot actually, and this is also one of the reasons why we are building tomorrow universities, because we believe education will still be relevant from that perspective, in a way, in a different way, but it will be relevant to become competent, to have a great network, people, personal relations, to have impact. And the way we believe how this works, how we can do that is fundamentally is that we believe we can bring the best content, the best education to anybody in the world, literally wherever you are. So I'm actually a firm believer that online education can be better than actually physical education, like being on spot. It's a very different one, nonetheless. But if you ask today's universities, which after the pandemic, they went all online, but it didn't work out for many of them, then they went back to hybrid or on-site. So from that perspective, they might disagree with that kind of statement that online actually can work.
You said two slightly different things there. I think that online can work or online can be better than in person. I'd love to kind of dig into how do you think online can be better than in person?
So I think the key part here, I believe the technology can help us to do things better. That's a core assumption for pretty much of everything what I do. And it has changed tremendously a couple of industries already. And I believe also for us to learn better and more effective, this is where technology can help us. Now, this is especially relevant because the world around has changed, and we see this even more now with things like AI. But knowledge is available at your hand. We have tools available like AI tools for us to be more effective. Yeah, and the way how we learn and what we learn actually is just changing from that perspective. And this kind of change isn't reflected especially often in existing universities and in existing schools. So what we believe is that we actually can now improve education. But the great thing is for us, it's really about improving education. And let's say the best angle to do it is because there's a change happening anyway. And the change which is happening is that people want the flexibility to learn from anywhere. So for us, that's the great opportunity in that regard to improve education overall. And then talking about how can technology help us to learn more effective, I think there are a lot of ways how this can be done based on the latest learning science. But give you just very simple examples. We can literally, like here, we can collaborate very easily together more instantly. We don't need to commute from one place to another. We can give you concrete and better feedback on your competences and your competency progress very specifically, which matters especially in mastery learning, what we do.
That second one is something that's very interesting, right? Because when learning happens in a digital environment, you have many more signals, and those signals can be used as feedback, and the feedback can be used to learn. So, yeah, you have interesting potential acceleration opportunities.
Absolutely. And it's also the case. So, give me an example. In my school, I had some really great teachers, I must admit. They have been really great storytellers and they did catch my audience. And yeah, I was really excited. And those are obviously the subjects which I was best in. Yeah. But then there have been like a lot of other subjects where I was really bad. And that was because the teachers have, for me, been not very engaging. They couldn't excite me. It was boring just listening to them. And I think this is what many students actually experience, that they have some great teachers, but also many not so great teachers. And I think, for example, also technology can help us to improve a consistent quality across anything we learn because of the framework it can help you to provide actually in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely have had that experience myself. Many more bad teachers than good teachers, if I'm honest. But
Unfortunately, quite often, yeah.
yeah. And now moving on to the kind of second question I ask everyone is from your personal experience, your personal learning experience, what what is the best learning experience that you have had in your life, and why was that the best learning experience?
So I believe I'm still learning. It hasn't changed, even
Yeah.
though I'm growing older. I think it's a part. It's a very inherent part, I think, of everybody of us. I think it makes life also interesting that we can actually learn, that we stay curious over time, and maybe even it has grown since I left school. So my curiosity and the eagerness to learn. I think was actually a little bit hindered from that perspective. And once I left university, the interesting fact is that I studied economics and everything was boring. I did just learn for the exam and it was not interesting. I just learned by heart so that I can forget on the next day again about it. So it wasn't very meaningful. But then when I left and all of a sudden I had to run this company and I haven't had no clue about how to do it. None really. Now, how do I how does a payroll work? How does a business plan work? How can I sell something? How can I hire somebody? I didn't know all of that. Yeah. So now I was starting to learn, but in a very fundamentally different way because now I had a purpose and I was very eager at this interest, this kind of curiosity. And this stayed for me for literally for my life. And I like literally when I worked for N26, which was creating a bank, I never created a bank before. And it was all about now get a banking license and build a core banking system. Now I had no clue. And people, it was also interesting, and it was actually a benefit, I think, in that regard. People told me, Christian, you cannot build a core banking system. That's not possible. It's so complex. Banks are running currently in IT systems which cost you billions or millions and tons of millions actually.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, might be. I understand. I hear you, but I want to understand what is a core banking system actually. So that was a very interesting learning experience for me, diving deeper and again having this problem in the first place and then diving deeper into that. That's for me a really core motivation of my learning experience. That's where I learn really great and the most actually, when I then start to find out, read things, talk to people, how can this actually work.
Yeah. So this is, I guess, somehow similar behind some of what, well, we were talking about EdFido before, the London Interdisciplinary School, right, where it's problem first type of approach. So is it correct to summarize this around, like, you found your motivation through the problems you're trying to solve, and that was that kickstarted your learning experiences around them? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Oh,
It's really starting with this kind of, if you want to solve something, you discover problems and then you're starting to solve those problems. And this is
yeah.
how I learned the most actually in my whole life, because I had the opportunity also to jump into new challenges.
Yeah.
Once they're interesting, then you start to figure out how to solve those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And the best
Okay,
part for
and
sure,
now
if you have a little bit guidance and help on site, because it's sometimes really tough to learn everything yourself and find the right
of course.
locations, etc. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the fact it starts with a problem doesn't mean you can't get other people's advice
exactly.
and help understanding it. Yeah. Yeah. And now I have a bunch of other questions that I have not sent across before. So one twist is that one of these questions has been written by ChatGPT. And at the end of the chat, I will ask you if you have any idea which one of them will have been ChatGPT.
Okay.
um, so I wanted to start with, I guess, an obvious question, which is, what made you start Tomorrow University?
So the story behind Tomorrow University is really that I did my exit with my last company, which was Vivi, Digital Health Record, and then I was didn't know what to do very specifically, but I was sitting at the dinner table with my children, and the children have been in homeschooling, yeah, so they had their online class, and my son, the oldest one, Ben, who was 10 back then, he had a class about Berlin history. And in that class about Berlin history, he was sitting literally on the other side of my table. He then, was listening. And Berlin history is interesting, to be honest, yeah. But the teacher was talking, and he kept on talking. After 10 minutes, he kept on talking, and I saw how my son, he was like in the chair, like a little bit going lower and lower constantly, and just sort of watching. He had really trouble listening, and I was noticing that, and it took 1 hour until he truly fell asleep. And that when his head was on the table, that was the moment. Literally thought, that's really a big problem. And it's reminded me just of my own time at school, where I counted the seconds until the lesson is over because I was bored. Yeah, and I thought,
Yeah.
this is so sad, because yeah, so many things have changed, and I think tremendously improved, to be honest. Yeah, and for my kids, I really want that they are fully empowered, that they have the skills and the competence to do whatever they want in their life. So I really want the best in my kids, and that wasn't the case in that case. I didn't have that this was any good experience, that it was meaningful time spent well. Yeah, and that's when I
Yeah.
thought, okay, why is this, and how can we fix this? Yeah, and that was the birth, literally, of Tomorrow University. And just to mention this, my co-founder Thomas, I literally talked to him. We know each other since 15 years. He just didn't went the tech route. He went really the educational route. So became a PhD, and he did, he became a professor, and he went down that route. And I called him and asked him about the thing. Is this like normal? Is this something, do we know better, or is this the norm? And then he told me that, yeah, we know better. And I asked, but if we know better, why don't we change it? Yeah, Christian, I'm trying to change system from within since such a long time, but it's just really hard because the system doesn't incentivize this change. Yeah, it's just wrong. It's focused, especially in Germany, on research. You're not incentivized actually on changing pedagogy or thinking on a bigger scale how to really build things for the students. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the moment when we started it, actually.
Okay. And how would you say Tomorrow University is different?
So Tomorrow University is quite unique, to be honest, in the European space, especially because we're the first edtech, also with a university license in that combination. And what does this mean for the learners is that we are really an edtech, which means we are very student-centric. We are thinking about every day about how can we serve the student better? How can we educate and empower him in the most meaningful way, so that he really can become a change maker, that he can have a successful and impactful career in his life. Yeah. And we do this by technology. We are having a technology platform on the one hand side, which helps him to learn effective, which integrates mastery learning. So we customize his learning path, we give him feedback on his competences. And then we have, like here, we have a metaverse campus where students can exchange. In our case, this is a proximity-based chat system, which is interactive. But we believe that things like this here is something where we can get closer, literally online. And so what we see in a nutshell is that we believe, or we see also, that education is actually, we can do the best education online. We can also connect you and create a global community online. What we combine, and that's also special, is that we have actually meetups for our students regularly. Yeah, so one of the last meetups was at Google headquarters here in Berlin, where then our students come and mingle, meet each other, party, drink, have fun, and then really also again can learn and connect wherever they are independently. They don't need to commute to a specific place. And this kind of approach that we are built actually for effective learning, effective communities online, but then again, in-person meet so that you have fun as well, deepen your relations. That's a quite unique combination in that way, and definitely unique in Europe.
So you talk about, or you touched on mastery learning based here. Maybe just for in case somebody that's listening doesn't necessarily know what that is, can you expand a little bit about how that is integrated and what it means?
Yeah, mastery learning, I think is a really great concept, and it was I think Khan from the Khan Academy who did I think a really great TED talk about it, and I liked how he explained it because he was saying if you're coming into if you're building a house, yeah, and if you're building a house and you're building the foundation, what is happening then typically there's an auditor coming and checking is this everything okay, and once it's okay, then you build the first floor. And then again, somebody comes and checks, is this okay? And then you build the second floor, but you go step by step and make sure everything is good. And our school system is a little bit like you have a class, like you learn math, and then somebody comes in and says, hey, it's 60% okay. And then you continue to the second class, and then somebody tells you it's 55% okay. And then at the third class, you just struggle because you feel totally stupid because it's too hard, because you haven't learned some fundamentals. And if you imagine this to a house, yeah, imagine the auditor says the foundation is 50% okay or 60% okay. You wouldn't continue, and mastery learning, and I like this because it makes so clear you shouldn't continue if you haven't understood the foundations. So mastery learning means for us, we help you to ensure that you actually are ready for the next challenge. And this means very specifically that the challenges you enter tomorrow, they are not too hard and not too easy. Because if they are too easy, then you're bored. What do you do the whole day? If they are too hard, then you're frustrated because you cannot accomplish it. Yeah? And this is happening for a lot with kids, which just progress in math, and then all of a sudden they find out, oh, I cannot,
Yeah.
I'm too stupid, I cannot do math. But it's a wrong assumption. They can do math, they just missed some basics, so they need to go back to build the basics, and then it's very easier actually to also master any of the
Yeah.
more complex problems.
And so obviously different people move at different speeds and different times, right? And so how do you try combine that with the idea of a university then, right? Where you have a group of people going through, so far as I understand, there is still the concept of a cohort, right? How do you try and combine mastery learning with a group of people that are approaching similar subjects?
Yes. So if our master students, we call this intakes. They would start, for example, let's say now in March, yeah?
Mhm.
And then we have challenges, and the challenge is like a course. And a course is something you're signing up to, and with this course, you actually then go in a cohort of like let's say 25 students, and for 6 weeks you will solve that challenge together in this cohort, and you're committing to do that. For every challenge which I described, there are certain competency requirements. Yeah, you need to have certain competence. If you don't have that, so I'll give you an example. You don't join the first thing an AI challenge. Yeah, you would
Mhm.
maybe first do introduction to coding or mathematics or statistics before you join that AI challenge. Yeah, so what we will do, we tell you first, hey, you need to do that for this challenge. If you want to sign up to that, you first do that other challenge. So every learning path of the students is actually a little bit different, because some
Yeah.
will do these challenges first and then the other one. And some we have students in the AI program which are software engineers, and for them it's really easy. They will skip a couple of challenges actually because they have those competencies again, and it would be
Mm.
frustrating for them to sit in a class where they have the competency already.
Yeah.
And for
It's
the others, it's
it,
the other way around. Yeah.
yeah, I totally get the how it goes through. It's very interesting you took the topic of or the example of AI, purely because I would argue that today, in the last 3 months, actually there might be scope to try and understand AI without any computer science knowledge behind now, because ChatGPT has made it so much more accessible.
But that's using tools. That's using
Yes.
tools, which is which I think is something which is not an AI class. So we do product development with AI.
Okay.
They use
Nice.
actually AI tools to create products more effectively, which just makes
Yeah.
super sense from that perspective. You can use it for marketing. Hey, create a marketing strategy for a product XYZ, and you have a first draft, and then you adapt on top of it. Yeah. So AI is for us a tool which we believe that it helps you to be more successful. And we will see more tools in the next decade coming in when it comes to AI. And that's for us really quite exciting. So we also actively, and not just encouraging our students, but we actually integrate this in our classes as a
Yeah.
key part. Yeah.
Nice. And you
So was the AI question from ChatGPT?
no, it was not. It was actually completely out of the blue. I was just
Okay.
kind of riffing off of what you were saying. Um, I I had I had a quick a look at the website, and you also mention how you prepare learners to be for people to be perpetual learners. And I just wanted to ask a little bit more about what do you mean with that? How do you try and help people become lifelong perpetual learners rather than kind of just finishing at the end of your course of your program?
So absolutely, I think it's a little bit like myself. I think that I learned a lot actually way later after graduating. Yeah? Um,
Hmm.
it's something really continuous. I'm not done learning, and I think there are way more things to learn for myself. And um, as mentioned, this is something which is also an interesting part of life that we have the opportunity. This could be also now not always the work-related things directly, but maybe they are. Maybe maybe at 40 you think, oh, I want to create a company, or maybe you think, hey, I want actually I'm a software developer, but I want to move into sales. It's something really interesting. Um, I haven't seen that so often, but it might happen.
It does
Nonetheless,
happen.
that's possible. And we think this is really also important. We want to support this kind of this learning. And our part, how we want to support that is that we are focusing on the competences which we want to help you to learn, the 21st century competence. And we make, for example, programs or challenges, as we call them, stackable. So you can at any point of time, also not if you have a degree, you just can join one of our challenges. Where in the cohort, you, for example, I don't know, learn about battery reuse, circular economy, or about could be about leadership. But it's very important, I think, that you build up again, you build up this kind of competences, but also in a not in a theoretical way, but actually in an applied way. And what does it mean for our learners? Our programs, all of them are actually supporting flexibility, which means you can at the same time work. You can travel the world. We have new students who just wrote me today, which I thought is really interesting. They are living in the woods. They have a cabin in the woods, and they are really interested in the program. And I think it's great. It's great that this is possible now. Whatever currently is, you're a farmer, amazing. We have a student actually in Norway who is a farmer who loves design and who studies about product design. I think it's an amazing combination actually to make that possible. That while you actually do what you're passionate about, maybe where you earn money, but you can also learn at the same time.
Yeah. And so you've now built a new model for universities, right? And how do you think that fits into the larger higher education system? This new model that you have developed. Do you think this is just the way forward? Do you think this is one way and we'll have a set of different models that people will choose from? Like, how do you think about the model you've developed in the larger ecosystem?
So I believe it's a good question, and for sure I don't know because the future is yet to be created in that sense. But
Mm.
I think that there's a lot of value, and if you have a local university and you want to go there, it's a time way for you to also explore. Maybe that's the right way. But many people they want that flexibility. They want to study independent of the location. They want to maybe travel the world, work somewhere, and those people, for those we want to serve. Yeah. And we believe this need of actually flexibility is increasing. And we see this also in the market. So obviously there's a bigger shift actually to online, but online we haven't figured really out. Yeah. There is not yet 100 years of online learning. It's something really, really new.
Not yet.
And we need to learn a lot about what works and what doesn't, and how can we integrate this. And I believe there's a long path ahead of us actually on figuring this one out. How can we actually learn in the future in a better and more effective way, but also keep it as a social experience. Yeah. So
Mm.
I believe that there will be a lot of experimentation still to go. Yeah. And a lot of different models we will see upcoming. Is there the one right way? I don't think so. Actually, I think that we will actually because we are so different. We have different backgrounds. We have different cultures. I think that there will be more student centricity in generally about the learning in the future. Yeah, it will be more about what is the best way you as a person can learn, and
Yeah.
it's not about you coming to the teacher in a classroom and he is actually the centerpiece or the research is the centerpiece, but it's the student. And that's what I believe is what we need to do also if you're thinking about about the future. It's that the people matter most. Yeah, we are the change makers. We are the ones actually who need to be empowered and educated to be effectful and creating a sustainable planet.
Yeah. Okay. And now, kind of going at a slightly different angle, different topic. So we're all aware of the declining half-life of skills, right? Skills or the time any particular skills stays relevant is getting smaller and smaller. And um, how do you think about the future of learning and how you are approaching learning within this context of declining half-life of skills and the utility that you are trying to pass on?
So it's really interesting because I have the honor also to do a class on technology revolutions. And we're discussing here also the technology waves. And what you mentioned
Yeah.
is it's really important to acknowledge is that innovation cycles are getting faster. And if the innovation cycles are getting faster, the jobs which are created and the jobs which die as well is just
Mm.
increasing. So the speed of how long of new jobs is increasing. And then this means also for us, we will not be in a job for 60 years. You will not stay and be for your life maybe in one job. So it's very important that we become learners maybe. And this is, I think, where we see this kind of shift. What is actually important in the future? And there are very different competences. I like we base also what we do a lot on the 21st century competences, also defined by the World Economic Forum. So where
Mhm.
you see a lot is about learning to learn, or self-reflection, self-leadership. How can you manage yourself? Yeah, so that you
Mhm.
actually can stay up with that kind of pace, and these kind of different competences which matter today, I think, will help you also to adopt more quickly into the innovation which is happening on that space.
Yeah. And so how long does it take the average person to go through Tomorrow University today?
So this depends. We have bachelor students, and bachelor
Mhm.
programs currently are 3 years. The master program is typically 1 to 1.5 years. And then we have shorter programs, which are starting also for 2 weeks to do a mission identification challenge, where it's all about actually defining your purpose, your values, what you're actually passionate about. Or we have
Mhm.
short programs like the Green Tech impact degree with a well-renowned German university as partner, the RWTH Aachen, which is about circular economy and for example, also battery reuse, etc., in the
Yeah.
mobility space. Yeah.
And so how do you think about the longer form degrees, right? So one of the things that I've found most interesting in the last few years is looking at the declining half-life of skills, and it used to be 10 years or so. Last
Yeah.
year, I think the last that I looked like was about 4 years for the average skill. Very soon, it'll be less than the time it would take to get a bachelor's degree. So,
I'm looking forward to the implants at one
well,
point of time. Yeah.
well, this is what I mean, right? So, what does a future look like when the skills you are learning are going to be outdated on average, by definition, by the time you get out of a degree
Yeah,
structure?
yeah, and I think it's really important that which skills you're learning and which stay relevant and which not. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
you don't want to learn Python specifically and become an expert, but maybe you learn about AI like ChatGPT and learn with that to code Python in a more
yeah,
effective way. Yeah. So what we are providing with the bachelor degree program is something where you actually can work while you learn. And you
yeah,
develop your competence while you're learning. And also your learning path is changing maybe in the same time. But it's very important to build up that competence, yeah, because it's not about the knowledge per se. It's something. It's like, I know how to do a financial model, but have you done it? Have you seen different versions of it? Yeah.
yeah.
And this kind of act of actually building up your experience, this is also what is shaping your life and therefore your competence. And this is increasing your circle of influence, if you're competent. So I do believe that there are competences which are, as you mentioned, are more fast paced. Other ones are like learning to learn with something which you can use the next most likely 50 years. It's just not directly relevant for next job, maybe, but indirectly it is, because then you are able to jump into the job and you have the competences to master that job. This is the reason why we're talking about challenge-based learning, because we don't know which challenge you will face in your life. You don't know it, but we can
Mhm.
prepare you to master those challenges. And that's why these kind of also collaboration matters more, for example. Yeah. Because because of the complexity of things of today, you need to work together. Communication matters more. Just talking about sustainability, how complex topic is this? To make this really easy and to the point, this is tough. Yeah. And that's the reason why, for example,
Mm,
communication skills are so important. Yeah.
mm,
Technology literacy is not about just, hey, I know now very specific that kind of coding skill, but I have an understanding of technology. How AI works is a very interesting one. How software development works, what kind of different types are there, databases, servers, what is it in generally? This will stay relevant to have this kind of fundamental understandings and being able to use those tools. So from that perspective, I don't know, in 20 years when we have what was yesterday, our autonomous robots, yeah,
yes, the
the part that
humanoids.
yeah, that we have, everybody has his own personal robot, maybe in 20 years, I don't know. Yeah, totally possible or not, I don't know. But I think, and
Yeah,
yes, this will again change the skills which are relevant. So I fully agree there. Yeah. But it's
yeah,
about preparing you to actually adopt for whatever is required in the future world.
yeah.
And this doesn't stop. So I think also it's very important what you mentioned. It's really this kind of continuous being able, set you up to learn,
Mm.
to continuously grow, collaborate, etc.
And so, on that same vein, then, in that future, how do you think about the future of assessment of the learning and skills? Like, how does that happen?
So I think assessment is a very interesting topic in many
Yes.
regards. What is assessment? And there are different. I think that depends on the purpose of assessment. For me, the purpose of assessment is more feedback, help you to reflect, grow, and get input. Yeah, from get a different perspective on what you maybe have done. Yeah, and yes, for sure, if it's something very concretely like math, maybe there's a wrong or right answer. But especially in universities, we have a lot of really smart and outstanding students. The assessment is not, I give you a grade and that's the important part. The important part is the feedback you receive on your work, which could be qualitative and quantitative. Yeah, and I believe this kind of assessment will stay relevant also in the future. I think what is, from our perspective, not relevant is what kind of grade you have. What is the do you have I think a good grade or bad grade? But I believe the future is more, hey, this is the competence I have. This is my portfolio of experience I have built in those kind of competences, and this can tell you a little bit of how I can master eventually future challenges in that space. But it's fundamentally, I think, different. But again, this is not a shift, I believe, also which is happening from today to tomorrow, but it's something which I believe is important for our society.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the you used the word portfolio, which is indeed I recently spent quite a bit of time trying to look at what this could look like, and I converged through to a similar point as well, where some way of showcasing skills and abilities in a portfolio type format is likely where, or is at least one path we might end up at. So
So just
yeah,
want to say,
go ahead.
for tech is, there is this GitHub, and there are GitHub profiles, and if you are talking an interview and developer, you will have a look at his GitHub profile. What kind of what have been his contributions? Which technologies he has built up experience? Yeah, how often does he contribute, etc. This can tell you a
Yeah,
little bit more eventually than just the line in the CV which says he has worked at that company and used Python as a language. Yeah.
exactly. Okay, so well, most of the questions have been asked. I always want to finish with one question, which is, what is a question that you have today that you wish you had an answer to?
Yeah, now that we are here in virtual reality, I would wish to know and understand better how to use virtual reality, because it's quite meaningful, I think, for education and bringing us closer together in a great way. And yeah, that's what I literally asked myself this week. So happy to get any input also from the audience. Yeah.
Yes, if anyone has better ideas on how to use this effectively, we will let you know as well.
Perfect.
So do you have any idea which question was GPT?
You mentioned already my guess about the AI question was
Yeah,
wrong. Yeah.
wasn't that one?
Uh, so no, I don't know which one actually. Yeah.
So it was the one on how tomorrow university
Okay.
inserts themselves in the wider higher education space.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I fed it the funding announcement. There was a good article written, or a significantly big article written about Tomorrow University's funding round, and I just fed it that, and then asked it, "What can I ask Tomorrow
Interesting.
University's founder?" And there you go.
Did you now need to check if my answer was correct with what would
True. I have to go back to
ChatGPT would answer? Yeah.
exactly. Cool. Well, how did you find it? What was so this was the first time you've gone through this, right? So
Yes,
what did you
absolutely.
think about the conversation?
No, it's a really interesting one. I like the view. Did I say that?
Yes, very very Austrian indeed.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks a lot for the conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope what did you think about the questions, the directions,
No,
did it
amazing.
make sense? No?
Thank you very much for introducing me to the way of having my first podcast here in a virtual reality studio. It's really, as mentioned, it's really interesting. And I get your point. They say it's the focus is there. I have no opportunity to watch on my
Yeah.
smartphone.
Yeah, exactly.
How great is that?
Yeah,
That's
it's the one
already
place
all
that you are.
exactly. That's already the reason why I think we need to do it at the university. That's really the best reason, actually. Interesting one. Nobody brought that up yet. But this kind of focus is really important. This is one of the problems actually of online learning. Is this kind of, or online meetings in
Yes,
general? Is this kind of
you
defocused?
switch
Yeah.
off for a bit,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's we all have so many distractions in life.
How did you get the idea?
Well, because we use it in the company. We use it so much in the company, and then we started recording a meeting here or there in VR just for other people to be able to catch up.
Oh,
And initially,
nice.
it was like we're trying to figure out is it gimmicky to do it in VR or not? But then because we did so many meetings ourselves, like we had some hypothesis around, yes, the conversation is probably going to be better. I underestimated how few people had used it before. So they have, yeah, as I was saying, there are quite a few people that I had to just help get them set up. But at the flip side, everyone up to now has been very thankful because basically they knew about it. It's very similar actually to what you just said, which is that they've been thinking about it a lot, but there was no reason for them to properly jump in and do like a full conversation to actually understand it. And so they all found it interesting that now at least they had a full understanding because they really went through it.
Amazing. Thank you very much again, Josh, for making this possible. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
And
have a
talk
good
to you
one.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. I'm your host, Joshua Vöhle, CEO at Mindstone, and I hope today's conversation shed light on at least some of the problems we're facing. If you thought today's conversation was interesting, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast by searching for #AskWhy in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on YouTube or TikTok and catch the video feed of these conversations, which are happening in VR.